Hey guys, be video 4 for the how to design build a custom 58 Explorer replica and paint it sapphire blue and then install shark fin inlays in the fretboard if you can ever get your shark fin inlay in. It takes forever to get that stuff in sometimes, so I'm still waiting on the shark fin. I'm going to hit this very briefly. The client is aware of this, but about a week and a half ago, as soon as I was getting ready to do all the priming and even the blue nitro work, we got hit with like a 5-day rainstorm where it rained every day, all night, all day long, all night, all day long, all night long, and the humidity was just absurd. It was off the charts, and unless you really know what you're doing, don't ever try to do any sort of custom paint work in inclement weather. So I had to just wait and wait and wait. I did some other stuff on some other guitars, but for the most part, about 4 days ago, finally got some beautiful dry weather. I was hesitant to even start back until everything was guaranteed that we were going to have good weather. Then I was able to start doing my primer work for the dark color, and I like doing the black primer. This is obviously nowhere near a finished. It's just nitro. I think this is 4 coats of nitro cellulose lacquer sprayed out of aerosol cans from Mohawk. And this used to be a product called Balene's, but this is number M104225. It's about $22 online, and takes about 3 cans of that to do a whole guitar, and it's really beautiful. But I'll do a quick flyby just to show you what a black guitar would look like. And it's really beautiful. It's a beautiful profile. But you got to build some base coats to really identify where there might be any imperfections that once you start doing your finish work, go ahead and get that stuff behind you on the front end. Like for instance right here, had to do a little bit of additional sanding to clean up that profile, so you can see where it took me back to the white. Okay, so get it cleaned up with a black primer, and then once you start doing your blue or your pink or your red or green or whatever it is you're doing, then you'll be way ahead of the game. It's gonna be a beautiful guitar. Okay, this is the third time I've done this video because I got way too long-winded talking about, let me check the time, talking about bad weather, rain, and all that crap, and just, I'm just gonna stop talking about it because I don't even know if I mentioned it at the beginning of this video 2 minutes ago. If I didn't, I'm gonna be redundant. It rained like hell for like 5 days straight, couldn't do a thing, and here we are. So now that the rain is over and we got some primer base coat, let's talk about moving forward into the world of blue, sapphire blue. And but before we do that, let me briefly hit this so I can get this off the counter. This used to be a product called Balene's, M610 1406. That's a classic instrument lacquer for musical instruments. It has a little bit of elasticity, and it doesn't dry rock hard, because if you're building a jazz guitar, that needs to move and breathe, or an acoustic guitar that needs to move and breathe, or even if you're building like a chambered guitar that has a real thin top that you want to move a little bit, this is going to be the product you want to use. If you use it out of the can, the M610 1406, you have more solids in there, and that's exactly what this is in these little bottles. This is out of the can here, and then obviously the M113 1406 is the same product, yet in aerosol form, but it has far less solids. I don't know the ratio, but I just know that it takes a lot more of this product to achieve a really beautiful finish. But if you're just doing one guitar, just plan on about, let's say you're going to build a black guitar and then you're going to clear cut over a little bit, you're going to need a minimum of 3 cans of this. It's about $22 a can. And then you're going to need probably a minimum of about 4 to 5 cans of this, and it's about $22 a can. Do the math. because the reason why 4 to 5 cans, because you're going to be sanding off probably 40% of whatever you sprayed to get it to level out. And that's why I like the black. It has far more solids in it, and it will actually, nitrocellulose lacquer will almost not fill any voids at all. But the black pigment seems to be pretty good about filling any voids. Okay, so now that we've got our base coat and we're ready to check the time, we're ready to turn it into a different color. Let's start mixing out of this can using blacks, whites, you name it, blues, reds, pink, whatever it is you need to do. I'm going to keep this really simple and just say, okay, here's how I like to mix. I will not be using any white because I do not want it to be tinted. I don't want it to turn pastel. But if you wanted kind of like a Daphne blue or a real gentle beachy blue or something like that, you're probably going to want to be doing a mixture of the black and the white and the blues. I'm not even going to start talking about that because we don't want a Daphne blue Explorer Replica. We want a Sapphire blue, which to me, Sapphire blue is, as I've covered before, this probably is one of the closest things I have to Sapphire blue in here is that coffee cup. But the client has clearly sent me some images of pictures of things, and we're definitely on the same page. So, and it's just a real deep, rich, vivid, fairly dark blue. Okay, so how do you achieve that? Well, the ratio. I went on this little directions here. If you're using the trans tint, just going straight to the finish line, this 2 ounces could be used to tint a half gallon. A full, what would that be? 64 ounces of nitrocellulose lacquer, a half gallon. You could put that whole bottle in there, and that is the absolute threshold. If you do any more of that, you're going to run into chemical issues, and it probably won't dry properly and stuff like that. If you put that in there and then you started shooting some black in there, it's probably not going to dry properly. So when I'm looking at this, we're nowhere near. This is just the primer coats, the primer blue. We're nowhere near, a half a gallon. So I'll just be doing drops. And what I'm going to do, rather than fill one of these completely full and then start adding 10 or 15 drops of blue, a quarter of a drop of black, or even a drop of black or something like that, I would probably lose control very quickly, especially because of the Schwartz black. I've already shaken this. So what I do is I just keep my Schwartz black black. In other words, this started out clear, and this probably has about 5 to 7 drops of the Schwartz black. And the way you can tell is you shake it, and if you had a light behind it, you kind of watch. Let me see if I can see this in the camera. I don't know if it showed up, but just trust me. Basically, you want to shake it till all the black is on the wall, and then within about 3 to 5 seconds, you want to be able to see the other side of the glass. You want to be able to see through the glass. That's a pretty thin mixture of black. If you wanted to go a little bit darker where you shake it, and it's almost like you've painted the inside of the glass jar, that's probably getting a little. Just be careful. Just be careful, because I had a white card that I couldn't get to dry properly once because I put way too much white and amber in it. I was making like a vintage white penguin, and it took forever to get that thing to dry. So rather than trying to drop a drop of black in here after I've got a really beautiful blue, if I want to shade this beautiful blue, then I can just take some of this black lacquer and pour that in, and then I'm getting like a 10% of a drop of black or something like that, if that makes sense. And I can really monitor that, and that's exactly what I'm about to do here on camera, then I can monitor that color just by having some white where I dip this down in there and just drop it on here, and we can monitor our way to the finish line as we're tinting with the color. And by using the two different bottles, you're able to pour one over into the next and shake. And it might be that you get one absolutely perfect. Well, if you added this clear in, then it's going to weaken it. But you can't start out with the full glass canister here and then try to start adding, you know, a quarter of an ounce of this. Next thing you know, you're at the rim. But you need a large mix, and also this is very important. Keep a notation of the ratio so that once, if you find the color that you want, make certain that you know what that formula is. Was it 7 shots of blue and a little bit of black out of the can, out of this mixture over here? Or was it getting nowhere near the color that you wanted and you went ahead and just went full blown cowboy and just put a drop of black in there? Whatever you did, make certain that you make notation of it so that 3 or 4 days from now, or a week and a half, if you get rained out again and you go back to do all your finished coats, you've got a beautiful color there. But make certain that you have a notation of what your formula is so that you can, you know, get back in the saddle and finish the guitar with the correct formula of blue. Okay, so let's do that. Let's just start experimenting. I have not done any blue sampling at all, so I have no idea what is about to happen. But I do have this shaken up, and anytime you open this, I really should be wearing gloves. But oh, I haven't punctured the top of this one yet. But I can't work in gloves. I hate them. I end up making much more of a mess when I'm working with gloves. Man, that's blue. Hold on one second. This stuff gets everywhere really fast. Okay. Keep your lacquer close by because you're gonna need that. All right. Let's start out with five drops of blue. Let's see if that's in the camera. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then lean it back, catch it. Always. And it'll go straight to the bottom. And I'm very confident this is going to be nowhere near. I'm going to get that off the table. And if you notice, I've already pre-cut a bunch of little pieces of paper towel because you're going to need those. Okay. If you do wipe your hands with lacquer, like that, like what I just did, come back with some 91% alcohol and then give yourself an alcohol bath, and that'll help get the lacquer off your skin. I'm going to keep showing you a bunch of little tricks. Rather than tear this opening, punch 2 or 3 little holes in the top of your alcohol with like modeler pins or like a real fine pin, and then you can just about turn your alcohol upside down and squeeze the bottle and spray out the alcohol. Keeps you from making a mess. All right, let's do a little bit of shake work. Okay, so that was 5 drops, right? Nowhere near the color we want. It's pretty. Now, if you were, now I'm not going to start talking about, well, I did put it on the shelf. If you were going to, I'll talk about this for about 15 seconds. If you were going to do like a blue guitar, like the Robert Benedetto series, or there were several jazz guitars where they had a competition, but the theme was all the guitars had to be blue. Well, I think Robert Benedetto won the series, but if you're building a clear, transparent, semi-transparent color, then you could stain this wood blue first with like a denatured alcohol and or water, and then you could spray over it with this real thin mix, and then according to how heavy-handed you are with your gun would determine how deep your base coats are. But that's not what we want. We want an actual color. So that was 5 drops. And right now, see, we're only see how concentrated that is? You have to be really careful with this stuff. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Because, yeah, I forgot to mention that in the first video that I did, I talked about the ratio. You could pour this entire bottle into a half gallon of lacquer, and that would not be too much. So if that be the case, I know there's nothing wrong with doing 15 drops. Now let's see what happens. It's getting darker, and you can definitely, if you're like looking into the blue, that's looking pretty darn good, but it's still very weak and almost has a purplish hue to it. So we did 15 drops there. Let's go ahead and do 15 drops in this one. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15. Well, I got 16 in that one. Shouldn't be the end of the world, because what I'm going to be doing is called boxing. I will be boxing those two together. Well, let me get this. I wish I had a glove. I should have put a glove on for this. I'll just have to clean up later on with the. I'm gonna keep a bunch of alcohol close by, because this stuff is unbelievably concentrated. All right, so I got 15 drops in 4 ounces. All right. It's pretty consistent. It's pretty safe. And then what I would be doing is whatever I do in one bottle, I'm going to do it in the other bottle. And that way, after it's all said and done, see, I might end up coming in here and pouring in a considerable amount of black. And let me do this. I'm going to get these leveled up. That way, I can just read the side of the bottle, and I can do a cowboy mix. No, I don't have to measure anything. All right, basically all I did was, let me really take my time here because I don't want to risk spilling this. I just set them side by side, and I got them balanced up. So, and if you were to pour one over in, let's say you had a larger container, and then you did all this mix work here and all this mix work here, if you pour them all together and mix it up again, that's called boxing. That's called boxing the colors. So what I'm about to do is ask myself, how close am I getting to the sapphire blue? And the answer would be no. It might appear sapphire blue in here, but only because it's 1.5 inches thick, you know. And we don't want that. If you started trying to spray over that black, you probably wouldn't even be able to tell it was blue. But let's not rush it. Let's see. Where's my Q-tip? Let's see what it might look like in a Q-tip. It's pretty dark. You know, it's got some depth to it, but see how weak it is? I mean, it's nice. It's a beautiful color, but it's a little bit weak uh, when you're looking at it in a really thin, semi-transparent state. Is what I'm saying. See, once you go into the light, I mean, it turns into a baby blue. So we need to add some black to that. Or tell you what, let's do this. Let's take it up five more drops. We had 15 drops, right, of blue in each one. Let's take it up to 20. Because the ratio would permit you 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Notice we haven't done any boxing yet. I am basically going to be blue by the time this video is over. I should have put a glove on, but I didn't. Let me do this. I didn't put a glove on because this is the only glove I have left. I'm completely out of my gloves. I don't even think it's, no, see, it's torn. All right, so this is where you get your paper out. You don't touch anything. And you just write, you know, blue, 20 per can. I just wrote blue, 20 per can, meaning 20 per bottle. And I still haven't shaken it, nor have I boxed either one of these. Or neither have I boxed them. Okay, you've got an identical mix, and you know, obviously it looks like the color, but it's just not there yet. And this is where you would start making the determination of, well, do I start putting any black in it yet? And I would say no. I would say because of the ratio, I'm pretty certain that I mentioned it on the front end. The ratio said that I could put this entire bottle in a half of a gallon. And this is obviously nowhere near a half of a gallon, but there's a lot of chemical in here. Well, it's 8 ounces, and a half a gallon is 64 ounces. So I literally could drop like probably 10% of this bottle, this tint, into these bottles, and it not be too much. So after this video is all said and done, we may have 35 drops of blue in here, but I sure as hell don't want to start out with 35 drops. I'd rather start out with 15 and go to 20. See, I got a note over here. We are at 20 right now. Still not really where I want to be. I can just tell because I've done it long enough to spin it around on the glass wall a little bit and see how weak it still is. So let's go ahead and take it up to 30. Okay, 20. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Now, if you really, all right, let me stop. Okay. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Okay. Now, if you're really paying attention, you're probably already aware. Dude, you're way over 20 or 30 drops. I'm at 60 drops. right? But everything is separate. All I'm gonna do is write 30. That's why I put 20 per can, 30 per can. I got 2 cans. Once I box them, I now have 60 drops. And I'm probably getting pretty darn close to the color I want. I have not shaken these yet, so let's see what happens. Let me check the time. 25 minutes. All right, let's see what happens. Make sure those are tight, because you don't want this to start dripping out the side of the bottle. Now, to me, that's sapphire blue. That is beautiful. That is really beautiful. We might get to the point to where we don't have to add but just a very small amount of black, because the whole idea of the sapphire blue, I'm looking through this bottle. I don't know if it'll show. Yeah, it's not very. What I see is when that lacquer is on the back of the. I'm looking at the inside edge of that back wall, and I see the light shining into that back inside wall, and it's almost like I can envision what the guitar would look like once it's painted that color and the lights are shining into it, and it's pretty stunning. Okay, so we may not have to add any black, or if we do, it'll only be a very small amount. And what I might recommend at this point, okay, so we have 60 drops total per 8 ounces is the math, because this is a 8-ounce bottle here. If it were full, 8 ounces here, but we split it in the middle. See, I started out right at 8 ounces, and then I poured it over. That ought to make perfect sense. But I'm liking the color I see, and it's really beautiful. Where you would get yourself in major trouble is if you were to say, I want to darken it up a little bit, and then you put a whole drop of black in here. That's what I meant in the very early, at the very beginnings of the video series. I want to find out, are you playing outside a lot? Or are you strictly just playing in the bars at night, and then, or in your basement or something like that? Because if I was to put that drop of black in here, man, you would almost not even be able to tell that if I put a whole drop of black, you probably wouldn't even be able to tell that it's a blue guitar unless you went outside. But since this client's like, sometimes I play outside a little bit, and sometimes, I play in the house, that's where we're going to split the difference. And rather going with a whole drop, if I want to darken it at this point, because of my permissible ratio of putting so much of this into just a half gallon of lacquer, I probably could just about triple the drops. I'm not going to, but I could probably just about double or triple the drops and get a real deep, rich blue. But where I'm going is, as soon as you start adding the black or shading, it's a point of no return. You'll lose a beautiful color very quickly. So let's do just that. Let's do a little bit more blue. Okay, I'm 30 drops per can. See how light it is? Once it's thin, it's not very dark. It's not very dark at all. Okay. Okay, 30 per can. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. See how deceptive it is just on just the straight tint right on paper. Even that's barely dark enough. And that's without any lacquer at all. Here's a good way to test this. Okay, we know this one has 35. This one has 35, and this one has 30. This is not a magic trick. See how little it changed? It's almost undetectable. Now, what does that tell you? Well, we've kind of reached a point to where we're not really getting any more color. That's where we might want to add a little bit of black. So let me go ahead and add 5 more to that one to make certain they are balanced up. 2, 3, 4, 5. And as soon as I turned it over, it dripped, and I didn't get to count it, but it is 5. But we're definitely at a point now where we're kind of splitting hairs. But we're definitely getting a very, very beautiful color. And according to how many coats where I'm going with this, I don't want to have to spray 25 coats on here to achieve the richness and the darkness when I could put a little bit of black in there and go straight to the finish line within 3 to 5 coats. And after it's all said and done, this thing will have about 17 coats total, base coats, color coats, and then clear coats at the end. A lot of it will be sanded off. But you want to be real careful. As I mentioned in the very front of the video, whatever formula you achieve, make certain that if you start getting low in this canister, don't start cowboying, adding some lacquer to it in a couple drops or two, because as you're spraying this guitar, you might be 30 shades off that are undetectable to your eye, but once you start sanding and blending them together, and then you do your clear coat, you'll have a patch quilt guitar. It'll be a little bit darker here, a little bit lighter, a little bit of, just it'll get you in a lot of trouble if you don't keep this formula going. So we're 70 drops for 8 ounces. We got an incredibly beautiful, rich color. If you want it to be more purple, you'd want to probably add a little bit of red. I'm not going to start talking about that. But as long as we put just a little bit of black in there, we should be okay. And let's start doing that. Let's see, that's a beautiful color, but it's still fairly light against white. But against the black background, it's probably going to be pretty darn close. But because I've painted for so long, I know that it would probably be okay to add a little bit of black. So even your black is fairly transparent against the white. All right, how do we do this without making a mess? I should have a teaspoon. I don't have a let me pause and go get a teaspoon, and I'll be right back. Okay. Oh hell. I'll just have to pour it over like Robitussin. I'm sorry if that's not in the camera, but I'm doing everything I can to not spill it. In the big picture, you see how thin that is? That's nowhere near like putting a drop of black in it. So that's fairly safe. But let's do this. Okay. Okay, so we know that we're 35 per can of the blue, and we just put 1 teaspoon of black. And let's see what that does. We didn't put anything in there. So let's just take a mental note of that color right there and what's about to happen. We'll shake them together. Looking through the glass, I can't really tell the difference. Yeah, oh yeah, see that? See how much more shaded it got? That's awesome. And it's so much safer of a way to achieve your color by working your way to the finish line. It's pretty dark. Let me just do it before I forget. Okay, I'm gonna take a chance here. I'm gonna go 2 teaspoons in this one. Oh shit. I think it just, no, I did go down the side a little bit. Let me clean that out. Now we're gonna see where we end up. All right, always get it cleaned out. All right, get that covered before we lose it. All right. We just know that that one hasn't changed yet. Ooh, see what happened there? That actually almost scared me. See how much darker? It got much more rich, but we didn't lose the blue though, and hopefully you can see that. Yeah, it's still beautiful, still really beautiful. All right, now let's do a comparative, because if we open this one up and go, oh God, we're getting too dark, that's cool. Just chill out, because by the time you box them, it'll tone it back down a little bit. Well, it won't be toning, it'll just thin it down. All right, so I got two drops of black, or 2 teaspoons of black there, 1 teaspoon of black here. Let's look at the colors and see if there's any dramatic. See, even to the untrained eye, even to the trained eye, you couldn't see the difference. So you see my point is it really didn't make that much of a difference. But I can assure you, if I put a drop in there, we'd pretty much lose the color. So on that note, let's add another teaspoon to this one, and we are probably at a point to where we can start doing some base painting. And I hope this is in the camera, but if I don't hold it directly in front of me, I can't keep it under control. It'll, if I start trying to do this, I'll probably pour it all over the table. All right, so before I forget, and I just changed that to 2 teaspoons black per can. Now, if I had written like 1 drop of black, then I would have known that meant that I went with a drop out of the concentrated can. So we're probably at a good point, and you can see this color where if you were in the bar it's going to be fairly dark, and then all of a sudden, once it hits the light, wham, it'll be that beautiful sapphire blue. You walk outside and do a live show, it's a sapphire blue guitar. It's not purple. It's not a deep, dark sapphire blue. It's a sapphire blue if you're in the California sunlight or the Georgia sunlight or the Alabama sunlight. Cloudy day, if it's a cloudy day, yeah, it's going to look darker. But I think we're achieving our initial color very, very well. And speaking of that, let's see. That's where we started with the very initial. Let's see what we're ending up with. Yeah. Yeah, we're getting a lot of depth there. Okay. So I think we're in really good shape, and we got a really good base to start doing some paint work and building a guitar. So, what should we talk about? Let me check the time. Yeah, we're 40 minutes. There's no way in hell I'm going to start trying to do any of this on camera, because I'd be pausing and talking about things. I'd be digressing. It would end up being an hour and a half long video, but I would have paused probably 5 different times through the initial spray work and just sharing my discoveries and stuff. So to recap, sapphire blue looks like you could. Okay, so let's do this. Let's add it all up. 8 ounces of the clear M610. Okay, sorry about that. It's pretty important. Okay, if you want a sapphire blue guitar, it looks to me like 8 ounces. This is just a ratio. You might have to do this 3 different times, but your ratio is 8 ounces of M610 1406 with the heavier solids, 70 drops of the blue trans tint, and then 2 teaspoons of M610 1406 with enough black in it to give you an idea. This is probably about 7 or 8 drops of black. Okay, so that's I'm guessing, but just put enough drops of black in there till it starts coating the clear wall. Okay, and then we went with 2 teaspoons per can. So we have 4. I'm just going to put total. Okay, in order to achieve the sapphire blue, our ratio is 8 ounces of M610 1406, 4 teaspoons of black, 2 teaspoons per can, and then 70 drops of trans tint. Okay, and then what does that look like? Looks like a multi-$1,000 guitar is what it looks like. That's going to be beautiful. And the more I look at this, I can actually see this as being the color that they use to paint the Prince guitar, the Blue Angel. Actually, his might be a little bit lighter, but even if we didn't like it, if it was too dark, well, now we have a ratio that we can start manipulating to do the final coats and stuff like that. So, all right. Now, the trick is how to get this, off of my skin. What I mentioned about using gloves, I find that like using gloves, I start sticking to things, and especially if I'm trying to work with gloves on the instrument, man, my glove will stick to it, and then I've had a glove actually tear apart and remain stuck to a guitar neck or something like that. Because as I'm spraying the guitar, a lot of times I'm just holding it by the neck, manipulating the body with using weight and gravity. Using gravity to my advantage. And therefore, I've got a glove on. But I noticed that if I'm getting ready to spray a guitar, what I'll always do is I'll take the 91% alcohol, get any oil off of my skin, and just make certain that I'm nice and clean. Now I can handle the guitar with my hand and not worry about getting any paw prints on it. Now I've lost the cat. All right, let me check the time. 45 minutes of a whole bunch of incredibly valuable information that probably saved you a ton of money because you were able to just see me go straight to the finish line. That ratio probably applies to any color, whether it's green or red, or it wouldn't apply to yellow, which is nothing but a mixture of colors. But if you really look at what are your base colors? Is it green, red, and blue, I believe? I don't know. I used to know that stuff. It doesn't matter. But I guarantee, I bet you it would apply, that same ratio would probably apply really well to either red or green. Okay? Check the time. And then in the event, I know I talked about it in one of the videos that I got way too long-winded in, and I ended up erasing it. I'll only try to cover this briefly, but if you make a mistake and you start getting a blush, meaning the waxy film starts coming up through the paints, you got overzealous and you tried to finish it too soon, you have no choice but to then come in with either like a TSP or a Dawn, DAWN dishwashing detergent, and you got to wax that film. You got to wash that waxy film off before you can proceed, because since the wax that comes up through either an amine blush, if it was an epoxy coated type product that you're painting, that would be a amine blush where it's oxidation and some epoxy crap. It's just there's a problem. Okay, it starts blushing, or just blushing if you're doing paint work. And if you don't have any blush retarder, then you got to wash that guitar. So if that happens, you better come in here and fill any hole that you have drilled into your wooden body. You better have it sealed up with like a CA glue, because if not, because you're going to have to wash this thing like a car. You can't just gingerly work your way to the finish line. You're going to have to wash it and scrub it and get that wax off of it. And then you can sand and start painting again. But if you were to just come up here and start trying to wash that wax off, the water would penetrate down into any little machine hole that you've done, and you'll get a blister. You'll get a blister in the wood, and it'll be a nightmare to get it under control. Because what will happen, that water from where you're washing it will penetrate into any hole. And see, that's a fairly deep little hole right there. I'm probably only 25% the way through it. And once that water goes down into the body, you're going to have a wet spot there, and it might create a major splotching issue later on. But just proceed with caution. If you do get waxing or blushing, you're going to have to seal any coat, any opening, so that you don't get the blistering from water penetrating into the wood. Okay. And if I spoke about that in the front of this video, then I spoke about it again, only because it's so critically important that you get that stuff under control. All right, there's a lot of other things I can talk about, but I think this was a good video strictly for getting you ready to come out of the gate with your initial spray work. And then if you start spraying it and you go, whoa, it's way too dark, or it's way too this or way too that, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and do the whole guitar a beautiful 3x2 dark blue, and then let it dry a day or so, then sand it, finish it, and then take it outside in the sun and ask yourself, what do you like? Or either send your client a picture, because your client might go, oh my God, I had no idea it could be that beautiful. That's what I want. Or they might go, oh no, wait, that's way too dark. Well, at least you didn't panic, and you've got another good, deep, dark base coat to now come back in here with this material I would probably say discard this over into a canister and use it for a future project and just start over with a different formula and maybe only go about 60% of the way. You know, and really, if you want to know the truth, all you would have to really change is you could still do the 70 drops of blue per 8 ounces, but maybe only do 1 teaspoon of black between the full 8 ounces, like a half teaspoon in each one. Spray it again. Let your clients see that, and they might love it. You know, and that way you're getting yourself so close to the finished guitar that at least you'll both be on the same page, or you'll be able to get to the same page eventually. Okay, so I appreciate you guys dropping in and bearing with this long, elaborate video. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know. And when I say comments, please understand there's a lot of stuff that I learned from you guys as well that comment about that are obviously builders as well. So let me know if you have any opinions about that. But I think it's a real cool Cowboys version of achieving the color that you want, and it's nice and safe. One thing I'm going to talk about this briefly. I like using these little canisters to start out with because they're so cheap. You can buy these at your local big box hardware store. It's called Preval. I always call them Preval. And would take about probably 6 or 7 of these to spray a whole guitar, maybe 8. And when I say it's a fine atomized mist, it's a nice little canister. It's not just compressed air in there, but it's a neat little mix. And see, you obviously just screw this down in there. And once this is screwed in, you do not shake it because it's the weirdest thing, but all that fluid will start oozing out the side. You never shake it, nor can you tilt it very far. You have to keep it very level, but this is an awesome little tool to get you started rather than setting up your paint booth with a canister and you got all this crazy gear on and you're getting ready to paint only to realize that you're way too dark or you're way too light. You can use these little canisters, like $5 for it's about $7 for a canister with a bottle. And then you could buy the replacement canisters for $5 and then continue to use them in different bottles. And as you can see, I've probably got 5 or 6 of these laying around, and you can always use it you could keep clear lacquer in this one, so that once you're finished spraying your tester blue or your tester black, then you can put this in here, shake it a little bit just to clean it, and spray this into a clean cloth, and make sure that you keep this nozzle clean. And then you can lay these over on the table and pick them up 4 months later and use them again. And they surprisingly, you can spray quite a bit of volume with them. I think they'll atomize something like 16 ounces. Yeah, atomizes up to 16 ounces. Okay, so that's a lot. But I personally, once you get past, if you were trying to just spray one full canister, it gets a little bit weak. I think that's a little bit overestimated. All right, check the time. 53 minutes. Let me just stop talking, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And we will have a blue guitar going, and hopefully the mother of pearl will be in fairly soon. So this series will get back in gear fairly quickly. All right, thanks guys. I'll see you in the next video.